Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a truth that most overlook. Power moves in silence. The greatest accomplishments in history were not heralded with fanfare before they happened. They were built brick by brick, word by word, in the quiet corners of relentless minds. Today I bring you a principle so simple yet so profound that it can determine the very course of your destiny. Never tell people what you do. Why? Because every time you speak of what you're about to do, you spend a little of the energy that should be fueling your actions. Every time you explain your vision, you risk diluting its power with doubt, distraction, or discouragement. Your dreams are sacred. They do not require validation, applause, or permission. You must learn to move in silence and let success make the noise. Let me know if you want this expanded or styled for a specific audience, youth, entrepreneurs, students, etc. Silence is strength. Disclosure is dilution. This idea may seem counterintuitive in a world that encourages self-promotion and endless sharing, but it holds a powerful truth that separates the truly successful from the merely talkative. When you keep your ambitions to yourself, you protect their energy, their purity, and their momentum. The moment you begin to speak too soon or too often about your intentions, you invite unnecessary interference into your mental world. Interference in the form of opinions, doubts, distractions, and sometimes even envy. The most potent dreams are born in silence. They take shape in the solitude of thought, in the quiet corners of your imagination where no one else can trespass. That's where clarity is forged. That's where belief is strengthened. When you prematurely expose your goals to the world, you expose them to the contamination of other people's limitations. Not everyone is equipped to understand your vision. Not everyone will support it, and many will unconsciously or even intentionally sow seeds of doubt in your path. The wrong word from the wrong person at the wrong time can shrink your dream just enough to delay its manifestation or kill it entirely. When you share your intentions, your brain experiences a false sense of completion. It's as if you've already done the thing just by talking about it. This is a psychological trap. Studies have shown that when you talk about your goals, your brain rewards you with dopamine, the same chemical it releases when you actually achieve something. But the danger here is obvious. You get the feeling of progress without making any real progress. Disclosure gives you a premature sense of satisfaction, and that can steal the hunger necessary to drive consistent action. Silence, on the other hand, preserves your hunger. When you hold your plans close, you keep the fire burning inside. There is no applause to distract you, no opinions to sway you, and no external validation to soften your resolve. You become the sole architect of your vision. Your energy stays concentrated. Your focus sharpens. You are no longer performing for an audience. You are building in private, where your only competition is the person you were yesterday. Another key reason silence's strength lies in the laws of energy. Every word you speak consumes energy. Every conversation, every explanation, every effort to justify or convince, these are all withdrawals from your internal reserves. And when you spend that energy telling others what you're going to do, you leave less for the actual doing. You thin out your emotional resources. You spread yourself too wide. Think of your ambition like a flame. Talk too much about it and the wind of attention will blow it out. But protect it in silence and it grows into a fire that no one can ignore. Moreover, silence is a form of control. When you withhold information, you maintain the upper hand. You prevent others from predicting your moves, copying your strategy, or undermining your progress. In chess, you never tell your opponent your next move. In life, the same rule applies. Let them see your results, not your roadmap. Let them wonder how you did it, not why you're planning to do it. In silence, there is mystery, and mystery commands respect. Too often, people confuse visibility with power. They think being known is the same as being influential, but true power doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't beg for attention. It simply acts, and its impact speaks for itself. The most formidable individuals in any field are usually the ones who work in the shadows, refining their craft, sharpening their skills, and building something so real that when it's finally revealed, it needs no explanation. It's undeniable. Protect your vision from the opinions of the unqualified. One of the greatest dangers to any dream is the voice of someone who has never dared to dream for themselves. These voices are everywhere, disguised as concern, advice, or realism. They come from people who mean well but think small, who have lived within the walls of fear for so long that anything outside of that feels threatening. Your vision, especially in its early stages, is fragile. It's like a seed planted in uncertain soil. If you expose it too soon to the wrong climate, it won't survive. The opinions of others can be one of the most toxic forms of resistance, not because they're true, but because they carry emotional weight. When someone questions your idea, your timing, your ability, it plants a seed of doubt, and if you're not careful, that seed can grow into hesitation, self-sabotage, or complete abandonment of the goal. What's worse is that these opinions rarely come from those who've done what you're trying to do. They come from spectators, not players, from people who've chosen comfort over courage and safety over growth. It is essential to recognize who is qualified to speak into your life. Not everyone deserves access to your dream. Not every voice should be given volume. Just because someone is close to you doesn't mean they understand your calling. Just because someone loves you doesn't mean they see what you see. Your vision is unique to you. It was given to you, not to them. Their lack of understanding is not your limitation. It's simply a reflection of their perspective, shaped by their experiences, their fears, their failures. When you open the door to too many opinions, you invite confusion. You start adjusting your path not based on wisdom or strategy, but on emotional reactions. You start watering down your vision to make it more palatable, more acceptable, more realistic in the eyes of others. But doing so strips it of its power. Great visions are not meant to be comfortable. They are meant to challenge, to stretch, to grow. And that growth requires protection, especially from the minds that have never moved beyond what's normal. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your ambition. You don't need to justify your goals to those who've never walked your road. The need to be understood can be a trap. It can pull you into debates, distractions, and delays. Every minute spent defending your dream is a minute not spent building it. Let your work speak for itself. Let your consistency make the case. The best way to silence doubt is not with words, but with results. There's also a hidden danger in taking advice from the unqualified. It can make you forget why you started. If you listen long enough to those who don't see what you see, you begin to see less of it yourself. Their doubts become your doubts, their fears become your fears, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, your vision starts to shrink. You start aiming lower, thinking smaller, moving slower, not because you change, but because you allowed their limitations to influence your thinking. To protect your vision is not to be arrogant, it is to be wise. It means choosing carefully who you share your plans with. It means understanding the difference between feedback and fear-based opinion. Feedback can be useful, even critical, but fear masquerading as advice is dangerous. It sounds like concern, but it's rooted in limitation. It sounds like logic, but it's often just disguised disbelief. In the early stages of any great pursuit, what you need more than anything is belief. Your own belief. That belief must be guarded. It must be nurtured in silence, fed with discipline, and strengthened by action. It must be shielded from casual conversations, careless comments, and unqualified opinions. You are the gatekeeper of your vision. If you let just anyone in, don't be surprised when chaos enters too. One of the most liberating things you can learn is that not everyone needs to get it. Not everyone will. That's okay. They weren't meant to. The vision wasn't assigned to a committee. It was entrusted to you. Your job is not to make others see it. It's to bring it to life. And that requires focus, clarity, and above all, protection. Not against failure, but against influence. Not against critique, but against confusion. Because the clearer your vision, the more powerful your path becomes. And clarity is a product of silence, intention, and discipline, not the noise of outside opinions. Speak less of goals, work more on goals. In a world that praises visibility and celebrates public declarations, there is a quiet power in restraint. Many people believe that talking about their goals makes them more real, more achievable, more noble. But too often speaking about a goal becomes a substitute for doing the work required to reach it. Words create a temporary illusion of progress. You feel like you've done something just because you've said something. But real progress isn't made in conversations, it's made in action. There is a psychological phenomenon called the intention-behavior gap, where individuals feel a sense of reward simply from stating their intentions. The brain gets a hit of dopamine, the same chemical released when we accomplish something. But that feeling is deceptive. It tricks you into thinking you've made progress when in reality nothing has changed. You've spent energy describing the destination without taking a single step toward it. The more you talk, the more you satisfy your emotional need for progress without earning the real rewards that come from doing the work. Goals are not for display. They are not ornaments to be shown to others for approval or admiration. They are deeply personal compasses meant to guide your daily actions. Every minute spent discussing what you want to do could be a minute spent actually doing it. The most successful individuals are not the ones who make the biggest declarations. They are the ones who put their heads down and work in silence. They understand that the process is sacred and it doesn't need to be broadcast to the world. There is also a strength that comes from mystery. When you speak less about your goals, you create an internal accountability that is far more powerful than external validation. You are not working for praise, likes, or approval. You are working for purpose, for growth, for mastery. You are not performing, you are building. And that shift in intention changes everything. It keeps your energy focused and your momentum steady. The habit of constantly speaking about goals can also invite unnecessary opinions, criticism, and pressure. The more people know what you plan to do, the more they expect, judge, and sometimes even sabotage. Not out of malice, always, but because they simply don't understand your process. Every word you speak about your vision opens it up to influence, to misunderstanding, to doubt. And doubt, even if unspoken, has weight. It enters your space and disrupts your rhythm. When you keep your goals to yourself, you keep them pure. You allow them to develop in the safety of your own discipline and belief. Another danger in speaking too much about goals is the tendency to seek permission. You start shaping your vision to fit what others find acceptable or admirable. You begin altering your direction based on applause or silence. But the most important goals are rarely understood in the beginning. They're too bold, too different, too personal. If you spend time trying to make everyone else see what you see, you'll exhaust yourself before you've even begun. The people who make the biggest impact are often misunderstood for a time until their results become undeniable. When you work more than you speak, your actions become your identity. You don't have to convince anyone of your work ethic. They can see it. You don't have to explain your commitment. It shows in the consistency of your output. The need to prove or explain fades away because your results speak louder than any speech ever could. And those results built in silence carry a different kind of weight. They are grounded, solid, untouchable. There is also a kind of peace that comes with silent effort. You are no longer tied to the reactions of others. You're not waiting for motivation to strike or for others to support you. You've chosen to lead yourself. That kind of discipline is rare, and it builds character in a way that constant talk never can. When you stop announcing your intentions and start proving them through action, you develop a quiet confidence. You know what you're doing, and you don't need to be seen doing it to feel validated. Most people are busy talking about what they'll do. Few are quietly doing it. The distinction is simple but powerful. Talking is easy. Execution is hard. Talking feeds the ego. Execution builds the legacy. Every time you resist the urge to announce and instead choose to advance, you separate yourself from the crowd. You stop moving for attention and start moving with intention. You trade noise for impact, and impact always wins. Let results reveal your purpose, not words. In a world addicted to talking, those who let their actions speak become rare and powerful. Many people announce their ambitions, their values, and their dreams in an attempt to earn trust or admiration. But words are cheap. They don't cost anything to say. and they don't require courage, sacrifice, or discipline. Results, on the other hand, demand all three. When you let your results do the talking, you become someone whose presence is stronger than their pitch, whose purpose is evident without a single word. Purpose is not something you declare once and expect the world to believe. Purpose is proven. It's revealed through the work you do, the consistency you hold, and the standard you live by. Anyone can say they're committed. Anyone can talk about how hard they're working, but only the person who shows up day after day through difficulty and doubt will create results that speak for themselves. Real purpose doesn't need a microphone. It commands attention through action. When you focus on results over rhetoric, you also protect your momentum. Talking about your goals or your purpose too often opens the door to doubt and delay. It gives others a chance to weigh in, to add their fears, to ask questions you don't yet have answers to. But the truth is, you don't need to answer them. You need to work. And through that work, answers will appear not just for others, but for yourself. The process reveals clarity that talking never will. Purpose is a journey, not a slogan. It's something you live, not something you wear. It's not proven by how passionately you speak, but by how persistently you act. You can say you're committed, but the world believes you when you prove it. You can say you're focused, but the evidence lies in what you've produced, not what you've promised. Your legacy will not be built by what you said you were going to do, but by what you stayed disciplined enough to finish. Letting results reveal your purpose is not about staying silent forever. It's about earning the right to speak through what you've created. It's about becoming so aligned with your mission that your work communicates your intention without explanation. When your results are rooted in authenticity, they carry a message louder than any speech. They become your voice, your proof, your story. And in that story, people find the truth, not because you told them, but because you showed them. Power moves in silence. The most effective force in the world doesn't announce itself. It simply arrives and changes everything. When you study the movements of those who have achieved greatness, you'll find a common thread. They weren't loud in their rise. They were focused. They weren't interested in broadcasting their every step. They were committed to making each step count. Silence is not weakness. It is the strategy of those who understand that attention is often a trap, and true power is built in private. When you move in silence, you remove the need for external validation. You're no longer performing for others or waiting for applause. Your motivation becomes internal, pure, and self-sustaining. You no longer need the world to believe in you because you've already decided to believe in yourself. That shift frees you. You gain the mental space to concentrate, to plan, and to execute without interference or judgment. You stop spending energy explaining and defending your decisions, and you redirect that energy into action and refinement. Loud moves attract attention, and attention brings noise, questions, opinions, resistance, and expectation. All of these arise when others are watching too closely. The pressure to be perfect grows. The distraction of perception clouds the clarity of purpose. But in silence, none of that exists. You're not worried about optics. You're concerned only with outcome. The silence becomes your shield, allowing you to make mistakes, adapt quickly, and grow without the burden of having to explain every misstep. Power that builds in silence is rooted in intention. You are not scattered or reactive. You are deliberate. Every move has meaning. Every step is calculated. This is the kind of power that lasts because it is built on depth, not display. It isn't fragile like ego-driven success. It doesn't crumble when questioned. It doesn't need to be maintained by public approval. Instead, it grows stronger with time, gaining force and momentum behind the scenes until it becomes impossible to ignore. There is an undeniable advantage in being underestimated. When you do not reveal your full potential, people assume you have less. They don't prepare for you. They don't watch you closely. That gives you freedom, the space to work without opposition, the room to expand while others are distracted. And by the time they realize the scale of your power, it's already too late. You're not coming. You've already arrived. This is not manipulation, it's mastery. Mastery of your energy, your focus, your mission. The discipline of silence teaches you patience. In a society obsessed with instant gratification, learning to delay the spotlight is a superpower. You become comfortable with being unseen for a while, knowing that your work is not going unnoticed. It's simply not ready yet. And that's the point. You're not chasing recognition, you're chasing excellence. When the timing is right, the results will speak. But until then, you stay quiet, grounded, and relentless. You understand that the process is where the real magic happens. Moving in silence also makes your actions more impactful. When there's no expectation, there's no noise. So when your success does surface, it shocks. It speaks louder because it wasn't preceded by a parade of promises. It's not what people expected because you never gave them a reason to expect it. This is the difference between potential and performance is what creates legacy. True power doesn't need to announce itself because it's self-evident. It doesn't need to prove anything because it is proven through presence and performance. When you walk into a room with power built in silence, it's felt before you say a word. People sense it in your energy, your posture, your clarity. You're not loud because you don't need to be. You're not defensive because you've already done the work. You move with the quiet confidence of someone who knows who they are and what they're capable of. Moving in silence also builds trust with yourself. Every time you follow through privately, you build integrity. You begin to believe in your own discipline. You start relying less on others to push you and more on your own internal compass. That trust becomes your foundation. It keeps you grounded when things get hard. It keeps you committed when motivation fades. It becomes the quiet fire that drives you when no one is watching, when no one is cheering, when the world is silent. And so are you. Power built in silence is sustainable because it doesn't burn out chasing attention. It grows through consistency, patience, and unshakable vision. It becomes undeniable, not because of what is said about it, but because of what it produces. You don't have to convince anyone when your results carry the message. You don't have to explain your worth when your work reveals it. And you don't have to chase influence when your presence becomes